All right, we already have a volunteering group 4. Thank you, Ramnik and team. So we'll come back to you after these few slides. So secondary data, I think you all know about the difference between primary and secondary data. Very quickly, secondary data already exists. It was collected for a different purpose, but since it exists on internet or maybe we can buy it from someone, um, it is fast, it is cheap usually, and it's very useful. If you go to internet, actually you can find it for free most of the times. That's why secondary data has become really useful in the digital age. Primary data is the data that you collect. So anytime secondary data fails you, you go and collect primary data. The naming kind of throws people off since you got to go to secondary data first and primary data next. But if you don't want to confuse them, think of them as secondhand smoke from someone else who's smoking. So the secondary data is just like that. Someone else collected that, but we're using it. Secondhand smoke, someone else is smoking that, but you take the damage, your lungs actually. Anyway, so let's see what the chapter is going to tell us. After this chapter, you'll be able to tell your uncle pros and cons of using secondary data. You will understand common objectives of secondary data. You'll be able to identify various sources of secondary data. There are internal secondary data available in any company. Let's say the credit card information, every time a client zips it and buys something, that is automatically collected. You didn't have to go and collect it with your research team, right? So it's already there and it is an internal source. Then, of course, we have some external sources that you have to pay for. We call them proprietary sources. I'll give you some examples of these sources that will be useful for your projects, and later in life, if you want to do some research project, you know where to hit first. And we'll talk a little bit about big data. Actually, I want to tell you that you were lucky. I got a little bit sick and I have to cut the class short because otherwise I would have frustrated you by how much I would have talked about big data. It is something that is happening in the next 5 to 10 years. You know, everything will be about big data. I mean, right now, currently it is. So I would have talked a lot. You see, I cannot stop myself. But today was your lucky day. Anyway, marketers always need research because they need to put their strategies based on facts, right? And the problem is that you can never have 100% of the facts all the time. And that's because it takes time. You're usually under budget constraints, and you have to trade off. A good decision, but timely, is much better than a great decision, but too late. And that's why if the data is already available, it saves you time, it saves you money, but it needs to be in a usable format, right? It has to be useful for you. So one of the most usable formats are peer-reviewed research, because not only the person who's written that is an academic who plays by the rules, but also 2 or 3 other academics peer review this research before it is permitted to be published. And these kind of researches, the template usually has an introduction, which is the question the article is trying to address. Then they have a theory. They lay out the theory, what others before this paper have said about that. And then they introduce what they are going to add. Maybe they have a test, or they run a survey, they did an experiment, and describe the methodology of the test, describe the results, analysis, interpretation, conclusion. It's a very methodic format, so you can rely on that. That's why that's interesting. And they also, most often they show you some of their evidence in the form of cross tables. Sometimes they offer the raw data for others to examine their work. And since it is based on some theory, it is reliable. I think it was last week when we discussed spurious relationships, where increase in sales of ice cream show the relationship with increase in drowning in the sea. So the relationship did not really exist, and it couldn't be based on any theory. It was actually a third variable that was in play, and it was the advent of summer. So when summer comes, people are in the sea more often, accidents happen more often, and of course people want to buy ice cream more and more. So it is important to be able to find a theory that explains the relationship you are claiming to address, right? And remember that each of those hypotheses that you have is a relationship. Do you have a theory that backs your hypothesis? Or is it just guessing? You guess your hypothesis is true. It's a different ballgame. So in literature review, usually you go on to Google Scholar and search for a topic or search for an author. So here I have some example search results for you. Let's see the elements. Here is the title. This part shows you if you can download it for free or not, because usually when you click on the link here, it takes you to the journal, and the journal might have subscriptions and you might not be able to actually access. So this one on the right, let me draw a circle. Oh, can I draw a circle? Yes. This one is where you start to download it. Here you can see the authors, the journal name, when it was published, and at what link it is available originally. And maybe there's a little bit of an excerpt from the paper. Forget that. But here is your toolkit. The most important of which is this one that says cite. You need this to be able to cite it in your work. And when you click on it, it looks something like this. Here you have different styles of citation. MLA, APA, which is our favorite, Chicago, Harvard, and did not know there was a Vancouver. And these buttons are for different softwares. So EndNote or BibTeX, these are, some people use different software other than Microsoft Word. But for you and I, this is where we go. We copy this and put it in our reference lists. Mustafa, is this enough? This is good. This is step one. Step two happens in text, right? So you go in and you say, for example, Permedi. And since the names are too many, you say and, this is French for and, others, right? If it was two people, you would go with both of them. For example, Tom and Jerry, 2020, right? Oh, by the way, the date has to go here. It was 2017, right? This is how you cite something. And ideally, in a good report, in a good project report, I'd like to see everything that you write is either cited or it is something that is tested. Usually what happens is that you say something here that's not cited and that's not tested in your tests. So it's like, to me, that's like fluff, sugar. There is no nutrition in that. It's just sugar. You're sweetening your report. Okay? That's not useful. Okay. So this is the part about literature review. Before we go into other types of secondary data, let's jump to Google Scholar. Oops, here it is. Let's jump to Google Scholar and test our skills. I want you to suggest a topic and I'll look for some peer-reviewed article. I'm doing free service for you because I'm sick and I want to send in positive karma. So give me a topic that you want me to find. I'm gonna make your life easier with your literature review. You can put it in the chat box. Is the NFL rigid? Well, I mean, thank you for that topic, but something about your project. All right. Okay, we will do this. Okay, I received some new comment. Does gender play a role in the effectiveness of sensitive content warning labels? That's a good topic. So how I would do that? Here we have, there are two ways I can look at this. First of all, the first thing I'll do is to illustrate the relationship. So sensitive warning. How do you describe effectiveness? So what you're saying is gender would effectiveness be to grab attention, to be remembered, to change judgment, or to change behavior? Which one is effectiveness?
It's basically how does gender react to sensitive content?
How does it react? What are my options?
Yeah, you can take it that way too.
You see, usually gender is a moderator. So I will need, so for example, I display sensitive content and it grabs attention. I can ask about recall. I can ask about, did it change your judgment? Did you, for example, did it make you curious? Or did it change your behavior? I wanted to see or didn't want to see. And gender modifies that. For example, when we show or not show sensitive content, gender moderates how much people pay attention to it or remember it, change their judgment or change their behavior. Okay, so now that we understand how the role is played, let's go and check it out. So I can do gender warning effectiveness or warning attention or warning recall. I saw warning response. That's a good name too. Warning behavior, right? There's another good word, compliance. So I can put all of these and they would be different searches. Let's start with effectiveness. Evaluating the perceived effectiveness of pregnancy-related cigarette package health warning labels among different gender age groups. There you go. It is not digital. And this is a cigarette warning pack.
You're sharing your like PPT. We can see only the PPT, not the Google.
Oh, really? Thank you for letting me know. So far you couldn't see what I was doing.
No, not the Google part.
It's visible for me.
That was funny. Well, you gotta let me know sooner. Okay, so here we have searched for gender warning effectiveness. Do you see this one?
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. I can open this one. Comparing perceived effectiveness of a FDA proposed cigarette packaging graphic health warnings between sexual and gender minorities. I think you have found these ones before me. Is that correct? Have you looked into these? Gender differences in the perceived effectiveness of female-focused graphic health warnings. I would open that one. So I can go on and just read the title, maybe a little bit of the text, and decide whether it's a relevant paper. Sometimes you could find papers in the list that are not related, but they happen to share those keywords. Oh, this one is about virtual reality in the study of warning effectiveness. You see, this one cannot help us, but it's in the neighborhood of our search. So this is how I would do that. So here we have 3. Let's go and see each one of them. Gender differences in the perceived effectiveness of female-focused. All right, in South Korea. So this is the population. This is the, sample. And the abstract explains what we're going to see in the paper. I would just read the abstract and decide if it's a good paper or not. Before I continue, I would just go here. So the objective of the paper, the setting has been an online survey with 1,200 adults, most of them women. No. Actually, it was less than 50% women, and 475 of them were smokers in South Korea. It was a survey with 4 graphic health warnings, 2 female-focused and 2 gender-neutral. Well, here I realized it's the warning that's female-focused. So they show a pregnant woman. It is not exactly the question that Alan asked me, which was how gender reacts to warning labels. But I'm hoping that they found some contrast between men and women in their tests. So let's go to the results. Here we have the method. I'm not interested. Results. A significant interaction between gender and smoking status was found. So gender plays with smoking status. By the way, I just found a new variable that could be interesting for me. I could ask people about this. What's your smoking status? Never smoked, smoking regularly, smoking socially, and what's the last one? Can you tell me what the last one would be? So we got never smoked, smoking casually, smoking regularly, smoking socially, and recently quit. So these are our options. Okay, so here there was an interaction. A post hoc comparison showed a significant difference between female smokers and female non-smokers. Also between male smokers and male non-smokers, and between female non-smokers and male non-smokers in their perception of warning labels. I think this is very relevant. So I'm going to share this with Alan. I just put it in the chat. Female non-smokers showed higher perceived effectiveness. Look at that. This is exactly what you asked. Female non-smokers showed higher perceived effectiveness than male non-smokers and female non-smokers. So it was higher than both of them. Male non-smokers rated the perceived effectiveness lower than male smokers. Interesting. So the non-smokers in male didn't think warnings were as effective as the ones who actually smoke. So that's funny. This is very useful. This gives you a good basis for what you're going to test in your hypothesis. I can do the same with this one and the other one as well. Only in the interest of time, I let you do it yourself. So I just share these links with you. But you see, it didn't take too much time. And usually, if you use the right keywords, you'll be able to get the answer quite efficiently. And the part you guys didn't get to see was that I was showing how gender warning effectiveness could also be gender warning attention. And you can see that it is already autofilling here. So other people have looked for these. Okay, very good. That's the workshop. Now let's get back to our secondary data. So now, by the way, before we go back to the marketing part, any questions about how to do literature review before we move on? Okay, that's great. No question. So secondary data, obviously, it is collected by someone else. It is available. It is inexpensive. Sometimes it is our only source. So that's what we have to work for, to work with. So usually if you use secondary data, you will start to understand the importance of data transformation. And that is when you change the original data to a format that's suitable for your research objectives. Another issue with secondary data is, since you haven't collected the data, you're not sure the level of reliability and validity of the data. You don't know how it was collected. So you need to cross-check it with perhaps another database that is known and that is reliable. And you check some key metrics. And if they check out, that's your test of reliability and validity. So I think the morale of this slide is that you cannot take secondary data for its face value. Okay, here are also graphic version of all the things that can go wrong with using secondary data. First, you ask yourself, does data content help you answer your research question? Is the population in the data relevant? Is the data too old? Do the units of measurement match your research question? Are you measuring the same thing with the same metric? Is the data source trustworthy? You could look at methodology and check that out. Well, in the level we are doing our term project, we don't care too much about methodology, and we trust that a paper was peer-reviewed and published. So, this is a summary. Uncertain about its accuracy, is consistent with your needs, the inappropriate units of measurement, and of course, the timeliness of data. So we use secondary data for trend analysis. We use it for environmental scanning. Also, we use it for model building. If we need to forecast our market into the future, we have to collect some data and build a model using analysis that we do on that data set. So for example, if we do a regression and we find a regression like that with the data here, we might be able to predict how this data is going to react in future. It is not super simple like this, but I'm just trying to show you how a model is built to be able to predict something. Right, models, mathematical representations of the relationships between variables. You can forecast sales. You can forecast advertising response. So a lot of applications. Here is, for example, a sample secondary data. Let's see, this table is made available to us in a peer-reviewed research. We look at these countries, their population in 2015, how much they consumed. I believe this is beer, right? Yes, how much they consumed, annual volume per capita. So it is annual volume divided by population. And here we have share of world market. So it gives us a glimpse into which country actually consumes the most beer in the world. You guessed it right, it is China. That's where all the beer goes. But when you look at per capita, China is already a populated country. This is the population of China compared to all the other countries. So it is expected that per capita, it shouldn't be the highest. So it is not like all Chinese people love beer and they drink it a lot. In fact, the trophy goes to, drum rolls, Czech Republic. Czech Republic has the highest per capita consumption. I mean, has is a very is not an accurate word. It's best to say was. In 2015, we don't have any data for other years, but still, this table is can be used as a basis, at least to test the hypothesis here in 2023. All right, here's another example. Here is another example, but this time it is not explained in numbers. It's explained in colors. And here the legend tells us what number is associated with each color, because the colors can tell a much better story than the numbers. Question: can you turn this table into some graphic, maybe a bar chart, maybe a pie chart, maybe a map like this, and represent the data? I mean, not represent, sorry, present the data better. Would you be able to do that? That's what I expect to see in the presentations at the end of the semester. We'll see which team is the most creative of all. Okay, here is a question for you. How do you think a bank or healthcare organization can use big data and use this as a source for secondary data to predict? This is the objective, to predict peak periods for loans, or objective actually for loans or emergency care. If you want to learn more about that, here is a nice video that explains that for you, but it's really beyond the scope of our discussion. We will have quick discussion about big data at the end of the slides. But for now, let's leave it like that. I hope your curiosity is now piqued about this. With big data, we cannot analyze, we cannot collect data, we mine data. Mining data is a different method. It's not just the volume of data that makes it big data. It's the way we work with it. So data mining is actually discovering patterns in volumes of data. In order to find those patterns, we use some advanced correlation called neural networks. And the algorithms in neural network can detect these patterns. In fact, this is how face recognition works. This is how other identification methods work. And this is how machine learning works. Let me show you how neural network actually predicts something. Machine learning. Training a dog cookie. And we go to images. The idea of machine learning is that if you show the algorithm enough number of dogs, it will be able to recognize the next dog it sees. And here we have a Chihuahua in the middle next to another, I'm forgetting what breed it is, but next to that, it's something that looks kind of like a dog, but it's not. It's actually a cupcake. And then we have a dog, and then we have a cupcake. And scientists realized that it was really difficult for the algorithm to tell them apart. So every now and then a cookie was recognized and labeled as a puppy by the algorithm. So it was kind of funny and also showed the weaknesses of these algorithms, right? Back to our discussion here. So we use data mining for market basket analysis, for customer discovery. In fact, another application of these neural networks is all the recommendation agents on Facebook and Instagram that recommend you different videos, different users, right? Or different products. All these recommendation agents are algorithm based on this technology. So they enable, as I was saying, they enable Instagram and Facebook to market different products and services to us. This is called database marketing. You are marketing to people because a pattern was recognized in the database, and these people are within that pattern. In the simplest form, it happens like this. Imagine we have a database of our clients. We look at how much they've spent with us over the years, and we create CLV column. The CLV is customer lifetime value. So the lifetime value per year is how much they have spent divided by number of years. So it will be a dollar amount. Another person. And if we sort our database based on the CLV number, you know what we get? We get the highest value customers first. And then we decide, well, we want to send a promotion to these people. We want to send a different promotion to these people in the middle, and then a different promotion to the people at the bottom. Or maybe we don't want to send them promotion. We fire them. Have you ever fired your customers? Database marketing is very useful, and most companies are using it. All right. I think someone's microphone's on. Let me see. Thank you. All right, sources of internal secondary data. We discussed this earlier. Internal data, for example, all of your sales invoices, all of the calls that salespeople make, complaints that customers make, records of services, warranties, returns, product returns. So every one of these transactions is a piece of data created within your organization. For external data, you can go to journals, government websites, media like Bloomberg, Forbes, Fortune. You can go to trade associations, and they all have websites and data sets online. Or even you can go and buy data or reports that are for sale. Question for you. Suppose you are a marketing research consultant and a client comes to your office, says, I must have the latest information on the supply of and demand for Idaho potatoes within the next 24 hours. What would you do? It's definitely a very specific question. Have you been to Idaho? Is there any data? Is there anyone there that you can connect to and have them collect some data for you? Is 24 hours enough to do all that? In a situation like this, best alternative is desk search. Desk search is basically going online and find reliable sources for data and try and find it. And it's interestingly, most governments and maybe third-party organizations who are active in different areas, they have websites full of information. Or sometimes you can connect with them, send them an email, and ask for some data. And here is a quick list. If about different countries, you can see United States has their own website. Let's see if Canada is on the list. Actually, Canada has a lot of governmental websites that are really helpful. And then we have the UN. UN has good databases for different countries. And this one, CIA Factbook, is a great source of information about any country and industries. They have and those the data, the reports, they are all available for free. Okay. So if we were in the classroom, I would have done an activity with you, and I would have asked, where would you think the source of these data types should be? For example, population of Canadians, average income of Canadians, employment rates for Canadians. Well, we don't care so much about Oregon, Canada. Or where can we find European trends in automobile ownership? And if we had time, I would have made you Google them. And you can do this on your own time. So it's a good practice to see whether you find what you're looking for, how long it takes to actually find what you were looking for, and so on and so forth. Here, a quick list of commercial sources where you can buy data. And that would be our chapter on desk research, which also includes literature review. Now, let's take a quick break. It is 12:25. We will come back to class by 12:40. And in this 15 minutes, I'm gonna take a look at the work of group 4, and then we'll discuss that by 12:40. Okay, so let's take a 15-minute break and come back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 12:39. In a minute, we're gonna start um, working on Group 4's literature review. Let me quickly ask you: do you guys see do you guys see the browser window here? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So this is Group 4, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to know Group 4. These are our friends Arjun, Sartak, Navya, Srishti, and Ramnik. And here is the cover page. I believe it's jumbled because it's showing in this environment. Usually the formatting is a little bit off, so that's okay. Correlation between sensitive content and the likeliness of people viewing it. The introduction was great. Very good job. I was not sure if this point, full stop, should have been there. Usually the citation comes inside the sentence. So the full stop goes and sits after that. A paragraph about what the literature review is trying to achieve. This was well done. Not too much, not too little. I liked it. Right, so the first article they have reviewed, curiosity to disturb the cat, Instagram sensitive content screens do not deter vulnerable users from viewing distressing content. Is looking at sensitive content screens. I put it in a box because to me it sounds like it's a good variable to include in your focus group and to include in your survey. Avoidance, to me, appeared that behavior and compliance is worded as avoidance. So I just want to show everyone this. It could come in different names and labels, but still it's the same 5 steps from attention to behavior. So for example, here's another variable they have reviewed. Its experience often becomes more attractive. So it's talking about when you create restrictions through those screens, the experience becomes more attractive. People want to watch it more. So that's judgment. So to me, I think this article had the screens impact on avoidance. Check that. Also looked at screens impact on judgment, right? Maybe they also looked at it like this: judgment and then avoidance. Because you see, if the judgment is not shifted, they wouldn't avoid. If the screen doesn't make you more curious, you wouldn't change your behavior, right? You would avoid. But if screen makes you curious, you wouldn't avoid. It would change your behavior. So it could be a mediation, right? So it's important, I guess, for us to always do this little exercise for ourselves to see whether our English words actually make sense. Because sometimes, it is when you do this that you realize your words have to be chosen better, right? Anyway, so this was a good article. I think it is this relationship. I learned some new ways of manipulating customers, as an independent variable, and a dependent variable, another dependent variable I could use, or things I can ask people in the focus group. Literature number 2. Now they are called trigger warnings here, right? Trigger warnings. Here they have found that there is no impact on the response effect. What was the response effect? It was avoidance. Or another response effect, academic results, like they want to probably see if not complying with warnings would impact, for example, academic results in someone's life, right? But the avoidance part is interesting. Academic result could also, I don't know if it is relevant or not. I let you decide that. But it is interesting how 2 different articles came to varying conclusions. What do you attribute this to? I would say it's their sample. First of all, the sample made the difference. And also the way they asked questions, the methods, right? Analysis part is usually standard. So here is what I really liked about this literature review. They mentioned limitations of the research because it is very eye-opening. For example, studies' use of single time point designs and emphasis on quick responses to stimuli was one of the shortcomings. So now we have a more complete picture of what created this result, right? So good job on that. And literature number 3. All right. Here, I'm not sure. I haven't read this paper. So I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that that paper was full of sugar. Because look, here we have, it's talking about how this article focuses on gathering literature. How can that help me? And I keep reading. I get nothing that I can draw a circle around and say this is my variable. Even here, it says content labels, presence of warning labels. Oh, that's great. I started, a little bit of a bowl here. And the impact of various labels. I need to know more about various. Why did you stop? So are covered in this article. Again, nothing I can use. Researchers have made progress in understanding labeling best practices. Good for them. Content labels are information about information. No kidding. This article tells that labeling is not a novel activity. You bet. So at this point, I've had so much sugar, I am diabetic now, and it's your fault. So sugar doesn't have nutrition. I think the only purpose for this article could be found in conclusion, because it kind of summarizes why we are doing this in a nice way. So let's talk about their conclusion. They underscored the important things they found. That was a good job. They found response effect, avoidance, academic outcomes are not impacted by trigger warnings. I am happy to see that they named these. I hope they use these or similar concepts as variables. In order to address issues like misinformation, this is a good why. Why are you doing this research? Because a lot of misinformation, deceptive content, can we rely on these warning labels or not? So you see, this is a good reason why people should be interested in your research. And finally, they left us with some references. That was fantastic, guys. Thank you so much. I will give you the score later. And I just want to tell the other groups that I read your literature review very carefully. I might not make as many notes. Most of these notes I made to show everyone how I read the literature review, but I try to be as expressive as I can. Good. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? Fantastic. I want, here is a question. Do we need to do a second attempt for this one? I don't really think so. I'm really happy with what you've done. So this could be your final version. So one more point. By the way, literature review never stops. It's just that you submitted your report for your grade, but through to the end of the project, literature review doesn't stop. You'll find moments in the project that you're like, oh, I have to go back to Google Scholar and find some inspiration. I don't know how to make sense of these numbers that we have collected, right? So you're always welcome. You have my permission to go back to Google Scholar and do some more literature review. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have one further order of business. I need only 10 minutes to do this. I want to talk about chapter 5. Let me see. No, I think it was chapter 7. I have to go back to my syllabus. Chapter 6 and 7. Okay, let me open chapter 7. I'm going to share my full screen with you. So this is chapter 7, survey research. The reason why we are discussing this is for you to understand what's the end goal of your focus group. You guys are going to do the focus group starting as of this week. And it's important that you understand whatever you find in focus group, you're going to use to build your survey research. So let's look at survey research right now and see what we need out of our focus group. Okay. This chapter discusses types of information, discusses sources of error that can make information biased, discusses interviews, different types of interviews like personal interviews, telephone interviews, interviews via internet, discusses the importance of pre-testing your questionnaires before actually sending them, and discusses ethical questions. But I'm not going to get into everything. I'm just going to show you some interesting survey examples. Surveys show 40% of consumers select electronic product brands only after deciding in which store they should be shopping. So the choice of where to shop comes before which brand to buy. And so if a survey can find this, companies would turn that into action. Samsung, Apple, and Sony, as is explained here, they all took action. So what do you think the survey asked people to find out 40% of them choose where to shop before the brand? Do you think it was a direct question? You don't want your questions to be leading people in one direction, right? So what type of question they were asking? More importantly, how did they know what to ask? Usually, researchers bring together 6 to 8 people who the researchers think they are knowledgeable, and they sit together for an hour or 2 hours, and they ask deep questions, follow-up questions. They dig deeper. They try to find the why in the, in consumer behavior, consumer attitude. And then everything they find in that interview, in that group interview, they will go and confirm with a larger group of people. So in the interview, everything is qualitative, meaning people are talking using adjectives, using labels, names, not a lot of numbers. But then those adjectives and labels become questions that the survey respondents will answer. But those answers will be in numbers, because they are like choosing a multiple choice answer, for example, or mentioning the measurement of something. So in the survey, we're basically talking about the focus group findings, but measuring them in numbers. Okay, so I want you to review these slides in your own time, and I want you to watch this video that I'm going to share with you in the chat. Of course, you have it in the slides of focus group, but it's for next week. You haven't seen that. So I want to share this video with you right now. This video is a 30-minute demonstration of focus groups, how to moderate a focus group, meaning how to execute it. Your team is supposed to moderate a focus group. You're going to do it digitally over Zoom. So it's a little bit different with this one. But still, watching this video allows you to understand what you need to put in your report, how you're going to design your focus group, and how to record the information that you receive from your participants. So please watch this video and go through the slides. Your next activity is going to be preparing a moderator's guide for me about your focus group. Let's see that. Here you can see literature review was due. Next week, it's the focus group moderator's guide. Mustafa, what is a moderator's guide? I wish we had a sample. There is an outline of the moderator's guide waiting for you on the Blackboard website. So go check it out. With that, I think we can finish 2 minutes before 1. Thank you, everyone. Again, my apologies for not being able to have this face-to-face class, but I'm happy that I didn't make anybody sick. I hope that everybody had a good time in this online class. If you need to review, I will make this recording available so you can go back and watch it again and again. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Yash. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ramnik, Upinder. Oh, so many names. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Stay safe and healthy.